Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Manfai. I'm Field Chief Technology Officer of VIEWQWEST, and today I'll be speaking to you about how digital transformation is spurring massive industry growth in all sectors and how we can achieve that in the best and most cost-effective way possible. So I'm sure all of you here are pioneers in digitalizing your organizations. What better way than to reach the customers, enjoy widespread coverage, than to go digital, right? Putting everything on the network, websites is the quickest way to reach customers and enjoy growth. In the past, growing a business was a bit more challenging. You'd have to set up a storefront, preferably close to some transport system, put people in it to man the stores so that they can face the customers. These days, it's a lot easier. All you need is a mobile app, a website, and you're good to go. Your workforce don't even need to be physically in an office. They could be at home. They could be on an island somewhere. And then setting up new stores or new sites is also made very easy. All you need is the location, set up a network link to that site, and all your support systems are magically available. It's that simple. And it is in this direction that we see massive growth. Lots of companies in any industry, all industries, retail, F&B, financial services. Now we operate hundreds of branches across the entire country and supported by a workforce that's not bound by any physical location. Now, obviously, there are downsides to this direction. As we grow from a network point of view, and security becomes a concern. Cyber threat is a major concern. As we've seen throughout the whole day, with slides shared by the other presenters, there are so many different threats out there now. And all it takes is just one flaw within the system to bring it down, to fall prey to these attacks. And these flaws can be anywhere within the organization. It could be an unsecured data link, a branch with an unsecured internet line, an Android phone that's unpatched, or your employee of the month clicking on a very convincing URL in a very convincing email. It's that simple. So, and there's also the question of human resource. As your organizations grow, you put in more sites, you grow from 10 stores to 1,000 stores. You also need to make sure that there are enough resources to support this new network, this advanced network, which has network components and security components in place. I'm sure we all know that the IT teams are always running lean. There's always insufficient manpower. Everyone is stretched. And there's also talk. There's always these boardroom meetings of trying to convince upper management that, hey, we need more money to improve our security. But while those meetings are happening, all the flaws in the system remain unpatched and we remain vulnerable. So I think it's fair to say that these concerns are what keep us up at night, wondering whether we have done enough to protect the company. Now, this is something that one of the earlier speakers shared as well. Philippines has experienced a lot of cyber attacks. And this is not something that's made up of or stuff of nightmares. This is very real and happening every day. And the bad news is that the frequency of these attacks have grown exponentially over the years and causing businesses to lose lots of money, loss of reputation. So what do we do about this, right? Basically, we have presented ourselves with a situation where, on one hand, we want to go digital to drive business growth. But by doing that, we are increasing our threat landscape. Many of us here work in organizations where concepts such as policies, guidelines, firewalls, IPS devices, endpoint management systems, these are all common terms and very prevalent in the industry. We all need it, no question about that. But the real question is, despite putting in all of this, is it enough? Is it ever enough? And again, I bring your attention back to all the earlier slides today. There are new threats emerging every day. There are new products to counter all these threats every day. Is anything that we do going to be enough? Or are we always playing a cat and mouse game, trying to catch up? And unfortunately for all of us, these cyber threats are across all industries. It's not restricted to banking and finance or just retail. It's everywhere. because everyone wants to go digital to expand their business. So what do we do about this problem then? Do we say stop digitalization? As someone pointed out earlier, put in faxes instead of emails. We obviously can't do that. So SASE is a term that's been coined up and pretty popular these days. It is a solution that rolls network and security into one platform for ease of management, ease of access, and with security built in, the amount of work, operational work and management work to deliver a uniform security posture across the entire company is reduced. So it sounds like a do-it-all solution, like a magic bullet for a lot of problems that firms have. But let's think about it for a moment and go through a few points, and we'll realize that it's not always the case. In a country like Philippines, where we have lots of distributed businesses, one of the key considerations when expanding business is to try to keep the network as uniform as possible. You don't want to end up with different partners for every site. You want to stick to a single carrier that will handle all your network infrastructure throughout the country. Now, unfortunately, this is not always possible because the carrier may have coverage issues in some remote areas or performance issues that they can't guarantee. So when that happens, what you typically do is you speak to a different carrier, look for a different solution. And over time, you end up with multiple carriers to handle, different equipment to handle, and all this falls on your IT teams to support and manage. It's a complex network of various components, various equipment, and it becomes a nightmare for your IT team to manage. They are already lean to begin with, and the more you push them towards digitalization, this problem just becomes worse. So, coming back to SASE, which I mentioned earlier, SASE takes away the problem of uneven telco infrastructure, of management. But before we say that SASE is the right direction for everyone, we need to think about whether SASE is actually the right solution for a country like Philippines. And why I say that is this. There are many SASE platforms commercially available. Some promise you global access, which is great for your remote users. I could be here today, Singapore tomorrow, London the next day, and I will still connect to my headquarters. Everything works fine. It works great as advertised. But put it into perspective, right? If your workforce or your offices are all in the Philippines, why pay for that? Why pay for something that you will never use? Or you could also go the other way, which is to build your own SASE network, to build your own SD-WAN, but all that again translates to equipment costs, training costs, investing in resources to support all of that. So let's pause for a moment and let me bring your attention to a case study of one of VIEWQWEST customers. So this customer is headquartered in Southeast Asia with a variety of holdings in retail, food services, healthcare, educational, etc. So as with most customers, they were embarking on a digitalization journey. And at the point when they approached VIEWQWEST for support, they had 300 over sites and all connected to a HQ and 2 data centers by means of an MPLS network that was provided by one of Singapore's largest telcos. The customer was complaining about lack of bandwidth for all their sites. And also there was concern about network security. And their IT team was basically drowning in support, trying to provide, to support LAN issues and Wi-Fi issues across all their sites. So to summarize what their challenges was, firstly, bandwidth. Because of how they were transforming their business, everything was going digital. Point of sale systems, credit card systems, everything was going onto the network. This led to increased network requirements. The existing MPLS network basically didn't have enough bandwidth for that. Now, the obvious solution is to upgrade the bandwidth on that, but we're talking about 300 sites here, plus the DCs, plus the headquarters. That was going to be an increase in cost, a significant increase. Second, on the topic of security, the network was traditionally designed in the sense that there were firewalls, but this was only to control access from sites to the data centers or HQ. There was nothing to prevent access between an office and another office, no lateral traffic enforcement. And because the customer had a few instances of malware outbreak, which spread from one office to another, this was a major concern for them. Now, with the MPLS network, there was obviously ways to retrofit it, to put in more security appliances, firewalls, etc. But this would have been a very complex exercise, as well as very difficult to manage, not to mention cost. So what did VIEWQWEST propose for this customer? Firstly, on the topic of bandwidth. Instead of MPLS, basically, VIEWQWEST built the customer an SD-WAN network, leveraging on diverse underlying circuits. This could be a combination of broadband, DIAs, LTE, MPLS. And because of the way SD-WAN is built, it guaranteed the performance of the network, similar to how MPLS was before. On the topic of security, VIEWQWEST worked with vendors to build an advanced security stack comprising of various security components and put this into the core of the network, the customer's network. And with introduction of a zero trust architecture, how it was structured was that all sites, all data centers, all headquarters, all traffic basically had to pass through the security stack. In other words, everything was inspected and secure. Even in an office, if they had two segments, VLAN A, VLAN B, everything would pass through the security core. Nothing was left uninspected. So the benefits of this whole solution was immediately seen by the customer. Firstly, they had much more bandwidth now, given that the expensive MPLS circuits were replaced by much faster but more cost-effective circuits. From a security and network management standpoint, it was also simplified. They enjoyed proper site-to-site inspection, but without having to put in firewalls in every location. Now, VIEWQWEST also provided managed service for this entire solution. In other words, the network, the SD-WAN, and the security portions were all managed by VIEWQWEST. So in that sense, the customer could concentrate on providing support to their end users. For example, the Wi-Fi issues that I mentioned earlier. So that was the core of their support. Now, and lastly, the solution was tailored to fit to the customer. What they needed at each site, the amount of bandwidth they needed, the circuits that were put in, the security features that they wanted turned on. This was all tailored based on the customer requirements. And because it's tailored, it was also priced accordingly to what the customer needed. So I'm sure it's pretty obvious. What we built for this customer is essentially a SASE solution. It's based on the SASE model. It's nothing new. But in the case of this customer, and I believe it would apply to many businesses here in the Philippines as well, sometimes the global SASE solutions don't work because of the coverage of it or the cost of it. And this is where having a private SASE solution, custom-built, tailor-made to fit your business, works better. And in the case of these customers, it was something that they truly appreciated because it was massive cost savings, but yet achieving everything that they needed addressed. So I'm going a bit fast, but the point I'm trying to make here is there are solutions out there readily available on the market. SASE platforms, security platforms, threat prevention, EDR, ABC, whatever. Lots of things, right? But how do we find the right combination of products that will fit you? Finding the right combination is one thing. Managing it is another, right? So while there are platforms out there that can do everything, is it sized rightly for you? Is it sized rightly for a local market in one country? Or is it sized for global markets? And if it's sized for global markets, then comes the question of pricing. Are you paying for something you don't need? So this is where I think we all need to take a step back when we look at solutions. We can look at products, but I think it's key for everyone, because cost is such a big issue right now, it's important to find a solution that's tailor-made and customized to your needs exactly. Don't pay for something you don't need, right? I think Just to give an example, this is probably something that we all hear at home for those with young kids. My daughter is 9 and she needs a phone for school next year because she's taking the school bus. So do I buy her an iPhone or just a basic phone? It's that same concept. You don't buy something that you don't need and you will never use, right? So on that note, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions about VIEWQWEST and private SASE, please come speak to us after this. Thank you.